We are going to start this training on assessment by talking about the purpose of assessment and looking at why we assess students. When people talk about assessment, it can oftentimes be a bit overwhelming, and sometimes people even feel a little bit negative about it. There are many different types of assessments and many opinions and ideas around this topic. As you work through these modules, I think it is important that we have a common understanding on the purpose of assessment. We will start by talking about what is an assessment. Assessment is an intentional process of gathering information to understand where a student is in learning. We know the assessment process should help guide the next step in a student's learning, but if designed well, the assessment process will also empower and motivate our students. High-quality assessment practices should motivate and engage students, generate confidence and success, communicate strengths in terms of learning, and provide intentional opportunities to learn from mistakes and failure. Gathering information is the first part of high-quality assessment practices. I think this image illustrates one of the biggest frustrations surrounding the word assessment. Oftentimes it appears we are just collecting data to say we have it, but this is not the purpose of assessment at Neosho. We said the first part is collecting the data, but the second part and critical component is using this information well. When we use assessment information well, we facilitate learning and help our students develop a growth mindset. We want students to see their learning in terms of strengths or what they already know, but possibly more importantly, we want our students to see their deficits as opportunities to grow and get better. Assessments are a tool that provides information about how we get better. When we are planning assessments, we must look closely at our purpose for the assessment. In a balanced assessment system, there are multiple types of assessment that serve an intentionally designed purpose. These include standardized test, district benchmark assessments, end-of-course assessments, summative assessments, common formative assessments, and ongoing formative assessments. You can see from all these different types of assessments and different terms how it can be sometimes a little bit overwhelming. Each of these types of assessments serve a different purpose, and the information gathered is often used in different ways. For example, standardized tests are used to evaluate an overall instructional program of a school, but this information isn't used to guide daily lesson planning. Common and ongoing formative assessments are used to help teachers respond to student misconceptions. These types of assessments have been shown to have the largest impact on student learning. Summative assessments are used to communicate proficiency and progress on learning standards at a particular moment in time. Summative assessments are synonymous with evaluation. Assessments of this type need to be designed well and focused on standards. And this picture kind of illustrates sometimes how people often feel about our standardized testing system, that it's stressful and that it's almost a punishment to students. The majority of a teacher's time in both individual and team planning should be spent using common and ongoing formative assessments to plan instruction. Analyzing the data collected from formative assessments should be seen as a vital part of lesson planning, not an additional task. In a balanced assessment system, summative assessments should be used to show proficiency on a standard or learning target. Prior to a summative assessment, teachers should use formative assessments to give students an opportunity to practice and revise their learning. I think this example, I'd like this example to illustrate the difference in the two types of assessment and when you would want to use each type. So as you can see from the picture, it shows a formative assessment as being when the cook is tasting the soup as they're cooking and making adjustments to that recipe to make the end product good. A summative assessment is whenever the customers are tasting the soup. And so we want that to be a really final product and the customers to have a positive experience with that. As you work through this module on designing assessments, it is important to keep in mind the purpose and the why behind using assessments in the classroom. Assessments are a very powerful instructional tool, positive or negative. We want to make sure when we are designing assessments and providing feedback, we remain focused on who these assessments are for. Are we creating a type of assessment that allows students to own their learning? Does the feedback you provide encourage a growth mindset? We want our assessments to empower the learners at Neosho to reflect and make adjustments to their learning so the growth is continuous and meaningful.